When's the best time to create your book? Right effing now. Tune in and we'll help you master writing, marketing, and publishing one bite at a time. Today, we are rocking the airwaves with a real life legend, Charles Hamm, brand new author of Ponder on It Pilgrims. Today is his release day, and he's a soon to be bestseller. So you are going to want to tune in and you want to snap it up now. We'll tell you all about it in just a minute. To bookmark or not to bookmark? What a silly question. I think we all know the answer to that. If you've got a book in you, you want to get it out, leave it in there, and it's only going to fester and haunt you forever. But no pressure. To get started, visit jhillcreative.com. That's jhill1lcreative.com. Hit the contact button. And as you are about to hear from our esteemed guest today, you'll be glad you did. Now, for the drum roll, the moment we have been waiting for. My guest today, as I told you, is a legend. Some people have called him the modern Mark Twain and the sage of Round Mountain. I know him as a friend so close that he is family to me now. He is a master writer, creator, a man restoring pride and the handshake to seal one's word. Charles Hamm is a grandpa to a handful of cookie bandits. You're going to find out what that means in just a moment. A father, husband, entrepreneur, Marine, reader of critical theory books, and by the end of the day, his first book, his magnum opus, is going to be a bestseller. I can say that now because I know it with all my heart. If you want to be blown out of your boots by his insight and wit, follow his LinkedIn account. Please welcome my treasure of a friend, soon to be best-selling author, Charles Hamm.
Well, thank you for having me on, Miss Hillary. It's just a delight to be with you.
Oh, you just made my whole day today. Made my whole day. You've made my past several, since when have we been doing this? November?
We talked on the telephone for the first time on August 17th.
Oh.
That was our initial contact, and I've remembered that date. I have a thing about remembering dates, and that's one that has stuck in my mind as the day this all started and the day we met.
We got an anniversary coming up before long. What are we going to do?
Well, we'll have to celebrate somehow.
Yeah. We will. So everybody is champing at the bit about you. Everybody wants to know about you. Where'd you come from? Did you just spring up off of Round Mountain fully formed one day? What all of this insight and wit and wisdom?
Well, it started a little bit before I got to Round Mountain, but basically, I've just been someone who has been living life, and as I got older and started reflecting on my life and where I had been and where I wanted to go, I just started having some thoughts, and I was listening to the things that I was hearing on LinkedIn and on the news, and just generally speaking about the state of affairs. And the thing that struck me was that it didn't make any difference what people seemed to believe. Everybody was mad. and all this hysteria, and people just so preoccupied with things that they couldn't do anything about, and a level of frustration that was just boiling over. And I just, as I've said before, I just felt like I had something to say. And I started writing posts on LinkedIn, just giving a different perspective of how I saw things from the advantage of a 76-year-old man who had been around the block a time or two and had an adventure and had been a student of history all of his life. And history, as you know, I have a passion for ancient history, but I take note of my own history and what has happened in my lifetime. And uh, I just started writing about that and gave reason. I felt, I'm hopeful. I'm not buying into all of this nonsense. Uh, I see better days ahead, and kind of gave people a reason why I felt that way. And these wonderful people started following me and commenting on what I wrote and just saying the nicest things. And the followers grew. Probably within the next day, I'll hit 22,000
That's great.
followers. It just goes every day. It just keeps going up, and it's all. It's just kind of swept me away. I have to pinch myself every now and then. These wonderful people, and they say the nicest things, and I I'm just trying to keep it all in perspective and stay me. But it is it's humbling to listen to the words of people and uh, the sincere appreciation they seem to express about the things I've had to say. It's meant a lot to me and has given me the drive to finish up my years. I guess just writing what more books. And I suppose when as I like to say, the sweet chariot comes swinging in for me, I hope I have another book about half finished, and maybe you can take it up and finish it up for me. You probably know me better than anyone in that line, but that's it's been a real adventure and a real joy to be a part of this and to have people like you who knew what they were doing to help me, because I didn't have a clue. And I'll say it again. I've told you a number of times, but I'll say it to everybody that you are the creator of this book. I just wrote the stuff and wouldn't have had a clue in the world about how to turn this into a book, but you were the master that did. And I there's a lot more to writing a book than just writing things. It has to become a book, and it's just I just love it. The cover, the formatting, everything about it is just masterful, and you get all the credit for that. There it is, right there.
There it
Yeah.
is. This is the best book that Bookmark has ever put out. Hands
Oh, I
down,
appreciate you saying that.
best book, because it is full of love, and that is why it is so special. Every word you've ever said, every person on the team. But I mean, it comes back to you. I see us as all one big brain, right? And we
Yeah,
all
yes,
have to operate
right,
together. I mean,
right.
there's Heather, there's your incredible artist, and um, the biggest picture is that the biggest piece rather is that you're the root. There has to be something to believe in, and that's what you have given to people, is that you believe in them. And that's what's critically important to remember. And I think people forget that. They just think sometimes they can just pop up a book and they don't really have to have much to say about it, and it's anybody can do it or whatever. But you have this incredible origin, and that's what everything sprang off of. So that's what I want you to feel inside, is that one day you sat down and you said, I've got something to say. I got to get this off my chest. And I suspect that other people feel the same way
They
as I
do.
do,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes, they
so
do.
when you when you sat down, so the first couple times, because I know your LinkedIn page better than anybody in the whole wide world. Okay.
You should, yeah.
I do. I'm like, I know
You're the one
exactly.
that keeps it up for me.
Yeah. So when you first sat down, just as anybody would tend to do, you have little kind of trickles of interest here and there, and then you go back to your life and whatever, right? And there was a day when that was not the case. And all of a sudden you saw the momentum picking up. Do you
Yeah.
remember that day?
The first article that I wrote on LinkedIn, and I always look back to it as the article that got me noticed, was who's the world's worst boss? Evidently, it's me. And and you know, I try to speak directly and don't pull punches, and people have commented on that.
Yeah.
But I don't ever, and again, I never want to come across as being mean or mad or anything like that. There's always a certain lightheartedness in me, because that's the way I am. Uh, I talk about finding the humor in things and being able to laugh at yourself, and I just keep myself constantly amused all day long. Uh, and I think you just have to love people, and I see people who are on different sides of the spectrums than I am, and I see the anger and the rage, and then I see the reaction of some of the people who would think of themselves as being on my side of the spectrum. And what is missing is that, you know, I can love you and disagree with you. And I mean, your politics doesn't stand in the way, or the way you feel about some of the issues of our time. Uh, there's just no room for anything other than to just love people. I never use terms like uh, derogatory terms about other people. I've never even ever used the word snowflake. And I mean, you hear people throwing all these names around. It's totally counterproductive. At some point, we need to just, and I wrote an article about this. Uh, we need to start listening to each other. And if someone's willing to talk to me, I don't care what they think, I'll sit and listen to them, and not judge them, not interrupt them, just let them talk.
Yeah.
And eventually they might want to know what I think. And maybe I'll tell them, and maybe I won't. It just kind of depends on if I think they're ready to hear it. But that's the way to start a conversation with people. And everybody's just folks. We're all out there, and we're all human beings, and we all have our issues and our struggles, and some people are being manipulated today by uh, other people. But I see everybody as just somebody's daughter, somebody's son or brother, or whatever. And I hope the most unlikely people that might read Ponderodic Pilgrims, I hope it's some of these folks, and that they'll see my heart in it, and maybe think maybe I have a good point or two that they need to ponder on. Uh, it, I'm not trying to save the world, but I'm trying to hit a lick, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, it's all we can do.
If we can all do our parts and
Yeah.
participate in the conversations and listen a little bit more. I've called myself a snowflake, so I
Oh.
can. And I'm purple, I'll tell people I'm purple all day long because I want the common sense party. And not that we're going to politicalize all of this, but it is about coming together. And I think that you bring the experience too of being raised in a time when you listened to each other, when
Yes.
you gave each other grace. You didn't cut people off. You didn't call them derogatory names
No.
that undercut the entire goal of moving forward together.
Yes, it's all counterproductive. And in one of my articles, I talked about the people on one side of the street and the people on the other side of the street.
Mhm.
And everybody's just yelling and shouting at obscenities to each other and making vulgar gestures. And it was like, what's the difference in these people?
Yes.
They have opposing
Yeah.
points of view, but they're all acting the same way. And no one's attracted to that. Uh, you know, I wasn't impressed with either group. So I tried to be I've tried to be a voice of calm and make people look at things a little differently than they have been, and not be preoccupied with things that they can't do anything about, but focus on the things that they can.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do.
It is, and we're all doing our best as human beings in some
Yeah.
unprecedented circumstances, and we have to give each other grace. Grace seems to have fallen by the wayside in this modern day, and I think that's why people are flocking to you, because they are hungry for that voice of reason and for somebody to say both sides are acting insane. You need to,
Yeah.
you're both, like, both of you children need to get along, eat your dinner and go to bed. That's what you need to do,
Yeah.
and it's almost like having what they refer to as an adultier adult, somebody who is more of an adult than you.
Yeah.
And and you see that with your kids when your kids were growing up, and my kids are growing up, and they say, how do I pay this bill? How do I talk to the insurance company? How do I make this appointment? How do I do this? And we turn to you for that reasoning that seems to have gotten lost. And there seems to be the ability to control oneself, to have some sort of self-control seems to have
Yes.
flown out the window. I think that it's different now. Everything is a podium, everything is a stage, everybody's
Yeah.
out there saying, listen to me, and
Yeah.
nobody is saying, I want to listen to you, except for you. There's one person in the whole universe who's saying that. So
Well, everyone seems to be looking out beyond themselves for the solutions,
yeah.
and the solution is found within us. And we need to just start talking to people, and one at a time make people realize that yes, you are part of the problem. Yes, I am part of the problem, but we don't need to be. And focus on what we can do, and be the kind of person that you'd like for everybody else to be. You
Yeah.
know, don't be just like them,
Right.
but be the kind of person that you would want to see in other people. And you know, if 30, 40 years ago, when I was in my 30s or in my 40s, this book was not in me. I mean, it wasn't there.
Mhm.
I still had a lot of living to do before I came to where I am. And I feel like it's hard to say this without sounding just horribly vain, but I've somehow just in my heart and mind feel like there's something providential about the whole thing, and that I had to live those 70 some years
Mhm.
before I reached a point where I could say the things I've been saying and write what I've written, uh, because I still had a lot to learn 30 or 40 years ago,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and still had a lot of mistakes to make, and uh, still had a lot of foolish things that I needed to do, that all taught me important lessons that I was able to put in perspective in later years.
What is the most foolish thing you have ever done?
Well, that is a hard question. Uh,
There's a lot to choose from.
well, just along the way, I think like everyone, uh, I I've said things that I have regretted, or could regret, things I shouldn't have said. Uh, I haven't I haven't told people that I loved them when I should have. Uh, just in the course of living, doing dumb things that had consequences that were unacceptable. Uh, uh, I sometimes I won't say that joining the Marine Corps was a foolish thing to do, although when I stood on the yellow footprints, I remember thinking that I don't know what in the world I've gotten myself into here, but I have this is a major, uh, major bad judgment. I, I was just home a couple of hours ago, and who are these people? Yelling and screaming at me, and yet uh, those are the thoughts of somebody that just got off the bus for the third time because the first two times wasn't fast enough, and the third time wasn't either, but they didn't have any more time to run us back and forth on the bus, so now they're just totally mad and angry with us. And but the Marine Corps was in so many respects, I learned just good hard life lessons about self-discipline, about authority, uh, and those things served me well. And I'll go ahead and say it. Another lesson was just the randomness of life and death, uh, and realizing that it wasn't really any different here than it would be any other time, or at that time than it would be any other time of my life. Uh, there's no guarantee to living another day, or making it through the afternoon. But it seems more exaggerated in the Marine Corps, but it really isn't, and it just gave me a perspective. Uh, I've been married for 55 years to a wonderful lady, and uh, there were times when I wasn't as good a husband as I should have been, or as good a father. Uh, uh, when you're married, you get very familiar with people, and sometimes say things you shouldn't have said. And yet now, after 55 years, we've become so one, that we just know each other, and I could come in, I know every button she has that I could push. And when I come in, I don't start pushing those buttons. I'd rather have a nice quiet evening. And she's the same way. You kind of get all that figured out over the years. But
That's funny.
I've done yeah, I've been most unwise at times in my life. And yet I've always felt like there was a hand that was kind of looking out for me. And I tell people that they ask me about my relationship with God, and I say, well, we go way back. we, we, we go way back, and he was always there. Sometimes I didn't know it, and sometimes I didn't act like it, but he was always there.
Yeah.
And that's a source of comfort now too, to have that feeling. It gives you peace and helps you put things in perspective. I feel like I'm rambling. Do you
I'm working on my listening. So, and I love listening to you talk. I feel like we're at the campfire, and that's just magical. So, yeah, the book wrote itself over the course of your life, but did you have times in your life where you thought, I really want to be an author?
I actually did. I've always liked to write. And a number of years ago, I actually wrote a book, and I just had the thing bound up. It wasn't published or really turned into a book.
Oh, this, Charles. Were you ever going to tell me this?
Well, I think this is the first time you ask. but the book, I'm the only one that ever read it. And it was the title of the book was that I gave to it was called The Sword of the Spirit. And of all things, this may surprise you and your listeners, but it was about warfare, and specifically hand-to-hand combat, and the war back in times when Roman legions met up with the Gauls, and they joined together, in just mortal, brutal combat. And I studied and learned the principles and the moral realities of being in that kind of situation, and what caused one side to be victorious and the other to fail. The tactics and the strategy of Hannibal creating the pocket that the Roman legions marched into, and then completely found themselves in a box and surrounded, and didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. And I studied a lot of the history in Europe and the Middle East, but also the Japanese and the Japanese samurai. Read this wonderful novel about Miyamoto Musashi, a great Japanese legend and great swordsman. And at the end of the book, Musashi is in mortal combat to the death with the only man in Japan that could have been considered his rival. And he's coming over on a boat to meet this man for the battle. And he lays his sword aside and carves a wooden sword out of one of the oars on the boat. And he marched up onto the beach with a wooden sword, standing there facing this magnificent warrior with fully dressed in all the samurai clothes, perhaps the greatest sword in Japan, and he was going to fight this man with the wooden sword. And Musashi won that battle and killed that man. And he said, it was said that the other man had trusted in the sword of skill and quality and skill, you know.
Yeah.
And Musashi trusted in the sword of the spirit. And it puts a spiritual element and a lesson of life that it's not always the most skilled, it's not always the most talented, it's not always the smartest or any other things that you could say that make the difference. It's something within you,
yeah,
that makes the difference, that makes you different than other people. And actually, when I wrote this book, I had visions of it being something that business people and people in different walks of life would read, and kind of like Sun Tzu, the great Chinese general, it would be something that people could read and would see the points beyond the obvious of what I was writing about. And anyway, that was kind of what was going through my mind.
wow.
But the book went absolutely nowhere. I didn't have the slightest idea to how to get it published, and you probably weren't even born yet when I wrote it. And so without you, what was I supposed to do? You know, so
I mean, I can't be the only one thinking this, but I would love to see it. I would love to read it, because I would imagine, I mean, just being enraptured by what you're talking about, and the spirit, I can see this already in my mind. I'm like, okay, it's going to go to, business executives. I'm going to train their team with it. It's mindset. And so I feel like you've been an author your whole life. You just haven't had the tangible piece of holding the book, but you walk around and you are a book. You're multiple books.
well, maybe so, maybe so. The book is poorly written, my writing skills, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that. I was just getting it down.
Yeah.
And uh, it, it would need to be footnoted. I gave references like I did in Ponder on It, Pilgrims. I didn't footnote it, but I talked about the books that I had read, where I had gotten the information, and so I didn't feel like I was plagiarizing anything. And I might say, so and so said this or that or the other, but I didn't bother with the details of footnotes and all of that sort of thing. It would need tremendous editing. I mean, it would be, and then I don't know. I have experience in martial arts.
What? See, the more you talk, the more that comes out, and I go, I did not know this. And what?
There's a warrior spirit that is in my family line. My daddy was in World War II. My grandpa was in World War I. I had a great uncle in the Spanish American War and fought in Cuba. Both of my grandfathers on both sides of the family fought in the Civil War, one for the Confederacy and one for the North. And then the same thing, on both sides of my family, directly linked grandfathers both fought in the American Revolution.
Wow.
And it goes back to Germany. And I think that I inherited some gene of some sort, where uh, military arts were of interest to me.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a 5th degree black belt. And and I think that training has probably helped uh, make me a calmer, more civilized man, as ironic as it might seem.
Sure.
But I developed a system of uh, combat applications for knife fighting hand to hand with knives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have actually, I have a letter from a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps hanging on my wall. I was invited to come and train a company of Marines on who were shipping out to Iraq, and they wanted me to come and teach them about knife fighting. And so I did, and that was a great honor. People don't fight with blades like they used to, but it can happen. You know, combat at any time can get up close and personal. And you forgive my expression, but I call it, you know, you need to find out if you have the stones for close work, you know.
It'll weed you out, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's but it was really interesting the way that this happened. You stand up before a group of Marines, and you better bring it. I mean, these guys spot a phony a mile away, and they're a hard audience. And I thought, I need to get their attention. And there was one of the Marines not too far from the front row sitting there. And this guy looked big. He was a big man and young fella. And I'm in my 40s. And I asked him to come up. And he, I don't know why I'm talking about all of this, but I had him come up, and I said, I want you to take a swing at me, and I want you to try to take my head off. And I said, I'm serious. I mean, I want you to bring it. Well, he reared back, and I was making a big point about the principles of your front and rear and your flanks. Mm-hmm. And I had positioned my hands up just to the outside of his, and just holding him up like I wasn't even defending myself. And he come roaring in with a big old punch, and I deflected his arm and turned just slightly and deflected his arm to where now I'm over on the outside of him, and he's standing there with his arm stuck out. And I did a little shuffle and got behind him, and I had him in a chokehold, and he was a dead man. And I just kind of let up on it, you know, and I had their attention. From then on, they were hanging on every word I had to say about everything, because the principles of using a knife were based upon what I had actually just done to him without a knife. Yeah. If I had been able to deflect his arm to get outside of him, it was over. Yeah. And so we had a really good day. But I just wondered how in the world we got off on all of this. I don't. Oh, it was about that book. Yeah, I've had an interest in this sort of thing, but I feel like I feel so far removed from all of that now. You know, they tell you hear things on LinkedIn all the time. You know, don't mess with an old man. He's too old to fight you. He'll just shoot you. You know.
You I think it speaks to you though, because when you talk about the sword and the spirit, that's how I think of you. I think of you paying attention. I think of you listening. I think of you going after what has been in your heart this whole time and what you've known this whole time. This is a huge commonality. So we're gonna wrap up. I mean, it just flew. The time, I knew it would. I knew it would just fly.
Oh, my goodness, my
But
goodness.
I want to ask you, there are people who are younger than both of us, right? And they want that social media following, and they're trying to do all kinds of different things to get it, and they're just not landing on anything. What do you want to tell them to do that has worked for you?
I think that the first thing you have to do is get noticed, and again realize who you are. Someone 20 years old pontificating about life, and I think I had to be 76 to pull this off. You know,
Yes, yes.
and you know, I mean, young people, God bless them. I mean, the advantages of being young and hard chargered, full of vinegar and energy and enthusiasm. There's nothing like it. But every age has its blessings and its advantages. And young folks today need to learn, and they need to listen.
Yeah.
And as they get a little older, they can talk about things, but there's kind of a rule in business that no one really takes you seriously until you're about 40 years old, because all of the leaders, the foreman and the superintendent and the people that you're going to be working with, they're all in their 40s for the most part, or late 30s. They're not 21 years old. And that's when life experience teaches us so much. And for young people today, I tell them, just read and learn and make a good hand for your employer. Or if you want to start a business, serve your customers well and listen to them and learn. You have great potential, but stay on your own road and grow and learn. And then as you get older, you'll be more valuable. But people today want to start out on top, and life has dues to pay.
Yeah.
There's dues to be paid in life. And so I would just encourage them to pursue their passions, but to be students and to learn and to grow and prepare yourself for greater responsibility.
I would add too that so many people are trying to be like other people. Be you. Stick
Yes.
that flag out there. That what
Yeah.
makes you different.
Yes.
Embrace that. You don't have to be all polished up and regurgitating what everybody else is,
No,
right? Yeah.
no. The second book, I titled it, "It's a Dang Shame, Pilgrims." That'll be my second book. And the dang shame is people not trying to be someone other than themselves.
Yes.
That will be the central theme of the book, and it'll be a lot like Ponder on It, Pilgrims, but with that important distinction that don't deny the world the uniqueness of you by trying to be somebody else. And I'll be making that point in a number of different ways. But that's the second book I'm working on now.
I can hardly wait. And you answered my last question. Well, I'll say my second to last question was that what were your next plans? But then my final question is, what don't people know about you?
Well, they know quite a bit about me. Uh, if they've read the book, that book was hard to write in places. Uh, some of the chapters in the book uh, were very difficult to write,
Yeah.
but I felt like I wanted people to know I was a real person and not some guru, uh, but somebody that had a lot of life experience and had ups and downs and failures along with successes. I've known great hurt and heartbreak. I've known grief and sadness. I mean, and all of those things have uh, all made me what I am. And the disappointments and things. It people ask if I could go back, what would I do different? And I thought for it the first time I was asked, and I said, after I thought, well, I wouldn't want to do anything different because everything that I did contributed to who I am today. And right now I kind of like myself and the way I've turned out, you know. But I'm just a man. I'm not a wise man. I call myself an old man struggling not to be an old fool. And, we're only as wise as our last decision. But I didn't want to present myself as someone who had just lived this charmed life and had become a wise man as a result. It's the hard times that it's your defeats that are the keys to your victories. You learn in the loss. You celebrate a win, but you reflect on a loss, and I've known and experienced all of that. Are we running out of time?
Well, Charles,
I'm really gabby today.
you are Gabby, but that's the persona that I love the most, is because that's when we get the most out of you. I heard a whole lot of Texas grit there coming out in that last part, so we'll be taking those transcriptions.
I'm writing more Texas grit.
You are.
Shame Pilgrims, yeah.
Yes, you are. So I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I mean, it's an absolute honor to be in your life and be even a small part of what you're doing and help people.
Well, the honor is absolutely mine. Nice lady. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Charles Hamm, living proof that you can put your money where your mouth is. And it doesn't matter what season of life you're in. Hit your wagon to a star, believe in yourself. And please head to Amazon and grab Ponder on It Pilgrims today, a guaranteed bestseller. We're going to get the news later tonight, and I am just like twirling out of my shoes over it. I'm so excited. Also follow him on LinkedIn. Make sure you follow Charles Hamm with 2 M's, and you will not be disappointed. Now that's it for this week's chapter of Write Effing Now. When you need proven tips on getting the best writing on the page, you know where to go. Until next time, authors, write on.